Imenay 38 na legislature ng Guam is called to order. For the prayer, will Senator Tyree kindly lead us? Please stand.
Good morning, Mr. Speaker and colleagues. And as we pray, in the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit, amen. Heavenly Father, we gather before you once again, humbled by the responsibility entrusted to us, and grateful for the opportunity to serve the people of Guam. Thank you for bringing us together in this chamber, united in one purpose to build a stronger, more inclusive and resilient island. As we begin the work of this session, we ask for your presence to dwell among us. Grant us the wisdom to see beyond personal interest, the truth from distraction, and to keep decisions that serve the greater good. Guide our debates in truth and respect so that our words may lead to thoughtful decisions that strengthen our economy and ensure the safety and well-being of our island community. Give us the courage to speak up when trust is broken and the humility to listen when truth is spoken. Help us restore faith in our institution through integrity, compassion, and partnership. Remind us that though we are 15 voices, we are one legislative body, chosen to be the voice of thousands. Let us never forget the sacred duty we hold to serve, to protect, and to advocate for those rights. Health and safety depends on the work of this body. Lord, the work we carry out in this hall is our response to your higher calling to serve others with humility and purpose. May all that we accomplish during this session truly uphold a commitment as public servants to build a better Guam together. In your holy name we pray, amen. In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit, amen.
Would Senator Dueñas lead us in the singing of the national anthem, Senator Borja on the Guam hymn, and Senator Sabina Perez with the interfresi.
Through the perilous fight, for the Inifresi, ginini mastaculo gi hinasoku, imastaculum gi corazonhu, zenimas figo naninas senyahu, hu afressen maisadzu, parabai hu protehi, zen hu defendi, I hinengi, I cultura, I lenguaji, I airi, I hanam zeni tanu chamoro. Niren shaku derezo ginen ezuus tata, esti hu afitma gihilo I Biblia, zeni benderahu I benderen guahan.
To express a never-ending and never-forgotten gratitude by the people of Guam, the legislature recognized recipients of Miladan Mas Takilo na Sacrificio on a display in the Guam Congress Building and during each of its sessions. For the recognition of the recipient of Miladan Mas Takilo na Sacrificio, with Vice Speaker Tony Ada, you are recognized.
On behalf of a grateful island and country, we honor Sergeant Fernando B. Esteves and the family of Sergeant Fernando B. Esteves for making the ultimate sacrifice in service and defense of our island and country.
Thank you. Madam Clerk, please take roll call.
Vice Speaker Ada. Senator Barnett. Speaker Blas. Senator Borja. Senator Calvo. Senator Duenas. Senator Gumatautau. Senator Lujan. Senator Munya Barnes. Senator Parkinson. Senator Perez. Senator Salas Matanani. Senator San Augustine. Senator Taitagui. Senator Terlahi. Mr. Speaker, there is a quorum.
Thank you very much, Madam Clerk. For the approval of the Legislative Journal, Senator Lohan, you are recognized.
Thank you. Good morning, Mr. Speaker. I move to approve the Legislative Journal dated May 27, 2025, subject to corrections.
On the motion to approve the Legislative Journal dated May 27, 2025, are there any objections? There are no objections. Motion carries. Majority Leader Senator Lohan, you are recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, there are messages from the Magahaguahan, and I move that they be appended in today's session journal.
On the motion that messages from Imagahaga and Guahan be appended to today's session journal, are there any objections? Hearing seen no objections, motion carries. Majority Leader Senator Lohan, you are recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, there are reports of standing committees, and I move that they be appended in today's session journal.
On the motion that reports of standing committees be appended to today's session journal, are there any objections? There are no objections, motion carries. Majority Leader Senator Lohan, you are recognized.
Mr. Speaker, there are no reports of select committees.
Thank you. You can proceed.
Mr. Speaker, I move that bills introduced, bills number 143-38 COR through 147-38 COR, 148-38 LS through 150-38 LS, and 151-38 COR through 175-38 COR, and resolutions introduced in resolutions number 56-38 COR through 79-38 CR be deemed to have been given their first reading.
On the motion, are there any objections? There are no objections. Motion carries. We are in motions. Majority Leader Senator Lohan, you are recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I move to excuse senators not present for today's legislative session.
On the motion, are there any objections? Hearing and seeing no objection, motion carries. Majority Leader Senator Lohan, you are recognized.
Mr. Speaker, I move that all congratulatory, commendatory, and condolence resolutions introduced today and for the remainder of this legislative session be considered first read and adopted to allow the Legislative Council to make technical corrections and to add all senators as co-sponsors.
On the motion, are there any objections? Hearing and seeing no objections, motion carries. Are there any other motions? Senator Sabrina Salas Matanani, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move to place the nomination of Melanie Armanjola to serve as a member of the Board of Trustees of the Guam Memorial Hospital Authority onto session agenda.
On the motion, are there any objections? Hearing and seeing no objection, motion carries. Senator Salas-Martinelli, you still have the floor.
Mr. Speaker, I move to return Bill 12 and Bill 21 to the Committee on Health and Veterans Affairs. When our committee first reviewed those measures, we agreed that their placement on the session agenda would be dependent on the completion of the final assessment report of the Department of Public Health's Mingilau facility. I've been in contact with Director Teresa Areola, who has confirmed that the final report has not yet been completed. Out of fairness and responsibility to the people of Guam, I believe it is best that we refer those two bills back to the committee until the final assessment is available. This will allow us time to review all the necessary information and make a well-informed decision on which bill is in the best interest of our community.
On the motion. Good. Gentlelady from Zona, you're recognized.
Just wants, Mr. Speaker, just want to respectfully object to that motion. Only because the pre-final assessment, according to the contract, was due on June 5th. The final assessment was due on July 18th, and I just want to hold them accountable to giving us the results of these assessments that should have been completed by the contractor by now, and that we should be entitled to, and the people of Guam should be entitled to, so that we can make our decision as opposed to holding it as long as they at their whim want to hold it. I think that we should move forward and kind of demand of them to bring it in, even if we have to subpoena them or something. This is Masi, Mr. Speaker. So I just would respectfully object that it be moved off of the agenda, maybe placed on the bottom so that we can see if it comes in by the end of the session.
Thank you very much. On the motion. On the motion. There is an objection to the motion. The motion is to place the bills, return the bills back to committee. Okay, there has been an objection. Okay. All those in favor of moving the bills, can you repeat the bills?
Bills 12 and 21.
Okay, on the motion to bills 12 and 21 back to committee. Okay, there has been an objection. All those in favor of moving the bill back to those bills back to committee, please indicate by raising your hand. Motion carries. Okay. Any other motions? Senator Parkinson, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Pursuant to Section 739 of the Mason's Manual and the adopted session agenda, I move to place vetoed Bill number 27-38, COR, titled An Act to Amend Section 60100, 60102, 60103, 60106, 60108B5, 60111, 60114B, and 60118 of Chapter 60, Title 10, Guam Code Annotated, relative to ownership, possession, and use of firearm silencers, into the third reading file for the purpose of considering the override of the governor's veto.
Can you repeat the first sentence of that motion, please, sir?
Sure. Pursuant to Section 739 of the Mason's Manual and the adopted session agenda, I move to place vetoed number 27-38 COR, titled An Act to Amend Section 60100, 60102, 60103, 60106, 60108B5, 60111, 60114B, and 60118 of Chapter 60, Title 10, Guam Code Annotated, relative to ownership, possession, and use of firearm silencers.
And this is notwithstanding the objections of the Imaga Hagangwahan.
Notwithstanding the objections of the Magahagwa.
Thank you
Yes,
very
sir.
much. On the motion to place veto bill number 27-38 COR, to move on the vetoed bill, notwithstanding the objections of Imaga Hagangwan, on that motion, are there any objections? There is an objection. Okay. There is an objection. There is an objection, ma'am?
Point of inquiry, Mr. Speaker. Is this an opportunity to actually speak on it first before there's an objection, or are we objecting just to moving it on for? So
It is debatable.
okay, then I'd like to speak then.
Do you want to speak to open it up first?
Yes, sir. I will take that opportunity.
Okay, thank you.
I was hoping to just move it along, but if we're going to speak, I'll speak.
Okay, I'll give you the opportunity. Go ahead, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. To my colleagues, I asked their support in overriding the governor's veto for this very important safety measure for our community. Suppressors are not what we've seen on television. They don't make guns completely silent. They are a safety tool for people who practice with firearms in a responsible manner. One of the biggest downsides that comes with exercising our important Second Amendment rights is the loss of our hearing from repeated exposure to high decibel noises. Suppressors do not silence these firearms, they merely lower the range of the noise to levels that would be less damaging to our hearing. As somebody who had to use ear protection for most of my previous career as a firefighter, where I operated chainsaws that ran at very high decibels, there are people who I entered that job with as fresh 18-year-olds, and that when they left less than a decade later, they've lost their hearing in their 20s. Many of our service members have similar experiences with firearm usage in the military. Tinnitus is one of the biggest issues for people that use these tools on a regular basis. And that's what this is. This is a tool. A suppressor itself is never going to hurt anybody. It has no will of its own. It has no properties to do any of that. Like all tools, it can be good or bad depending on the use of the person. And we should not be legislating these tools away from lawful, responsible citizens because of the acts of a few bad actors. If we were to apply that same logic to everything, at what point we're just going to ban everything? Blaming tools for the use of these tools in bad ways is not the right way to go about it. Blaming the tool would be like blaming the pencil because a word got misspelled. And it's misguided. And I think it's very important that we give the people in the community the tools they need so that they can practice their right to self-defense without costing them one of their most valuable senses, our hearing. We have previously had 11 votes for this measure. I hope all the people that supported it the first time would be consistent in their advocacy for protection and freedom among our constituency. So I ask my colleagues that voted for it the first time, humbly, to please support it one more time, and let's get this important legislation across the finish line. I once again ask my colleagues in the community to please support the override of this suppressor bill because it is important for the safety of our community. With that, Mr. Chair, I yield the rest of my time. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Senator. On the motion, Gentlelady from Tumuning, recognized, ma'am.
Sijus Masi, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, you know, during the session on this particular bill, I stood in support of it. However, I failed in one perspective, was to incorporate one of my amendments into the bill. And I guess with this override, it actually gives me an opportunity now to actually have the ability to maybe create legislation to incorporate this amendment. You know, in the 36th Guam Legislature, I had an opportunity to visit some of the firing ranges, well, a firing range in Veto. And you know, the importance of safety was at the forefront of this. And one of them was the muffles, the earmuffs that they were utilizing. And even with these earmuffs that we were placed on our ears to protect us, you could still hear, it's still kind of loud actually. And then they showed us what would happen if we used a suppressor and had the earmuffs on. And it was so much better. There was no ring after effect or anything like that. So these individuals that were giving us the demonstration were police officers. And these police officers are ones who are required. I think it's monthly or maybe every other month required to practice shooting. And I can imagine, you know, after a while, even with these earmuffs on, that, you know, the hearing that they're going to lose, you know, as a former musician behind a drummer, you know, for 20 years, you know, bang, bang, I'm losing my hearing now. But can you imagine with these officers what they have to endure? So my amendment that I should have gotten in there was an amendment to at least allow these suppressors for our police, our public safety officers. That's the amendment that I wanted to incorporate. Just allow them to use it. These are individuals who have to keep practicing using firearms. These are individuals who, if they need be, need suppressors for a certain co-op situation where they have to be silent, you know, moving in on the bad guys. I mean, we all watch TV and see that kind of scenario happen. So even though I voted on this bill, I thought, okay, maybe this is an opportunity. And I see it as an opportunity to create legislation that would allow that amendment in, to allow only our public safety officers to utilize suppressors when needed, and even in practice ranges. Maybe that's the means that we should start, you know, baby steps to see how this works. And so other than that, you know, I cannot support the override on this, and hopefully that if it doesn't go through, that I would work with the oversight chair on public safety who worked diligently on this legislation. In fact, if I'm not mistaken, he did most of the work, you know, without any assistance from anyone else. So other than that, Mr. Speaker, I thank you for the opportunity, and I hope that the author of the legislation understands my perspective here and how we can move forward on this particular measure or this particular situation with suppressors. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you very much, ma'am. On the motion, gentlelady from Zonia, on the motion.
Suzus Masi, I just wanted to make sure that the people of Guam hear what the governor of Guam has written in her veto message on this bill. Prior to that, there were 6 pages of testimony from GPD where they laid out additional regulations that they thought should be put in place if we are going to allow suppressors, because law enforcement across the nation are concerned with how to mitigate the use of suppressors. And as we saw at the GPO shooting, it was the sound of the guns that allowed people to call or urged people to make those calls to law enforcement. And we don't know what would have happened if those law enforcement did not appear. It was already tragic. So the governor in her veto message says, the need to accessorize a firearm cannot override public safety concerns. The concerns about public safety that were present when I vetoed Bill 73 still exist, and nothing has been done to answer these concerns. This is simply a recycling of Bill 73. The loud sound of gunfire is the most easily recognizable warning that a gun has been fired in a person's vicinity, lawfully or unlawfully, and enables the person who hears that sound to get to safety if necessary. Since the passage of this bill, I've spoken to a number of school teachers who expressed their concern that if a shooting in their school took place with a silenced firearm, they would not be aware of the incident until the person was too close for them to react. I have also spoken with mothers who say they worry that they will not hear gunfire in their neighborhood, so they would be unaware of the need to bring their children indoors. The non-lethal auditory safety concerns for lobbyists and hunters can be mitigated by the use of hearing protection currently available to firearm owners. However, the concerns of the greater population associated with the broad availability of suppressors include potentially lethal consequences and simply cannot be mitigated. The existence of federal regulations affecting the purchase of suppressors does not alleviate these concerns. On the balance, we must continue to prioritize the community's safety from potentially life-threatening harm over the auditory safety of the few. For this reason, I veto Bill 2738 and urge our hobbyists and hunting communities to exercise appropriate safety measures to protect their hearing while shooting, including the use of safety devices intended for this purpose. And she vetoed the bill. Imaga Hagan Guahan. Mr. Speaker.
Thank you very much. On the motion, any other senators wishing to speak on the motion? No other senators? Senator Parkinson, you can close on your motion.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I would like to address some of the points heard here on the floor, specifically the notion that ear protection and the ability to practice our Second Amendment right in a lawful and safe way is only reserved for law enforcement. That position offends me and should offend anybody who takes seriously the notion of self-protection and protection of your family and protection of your community. You know what you need in a safety situation just as much as you need a potential firearm? The ability to hear, the ability to see, to feel, to smell, to be aware of your surroundings. And you hear it. You heard from one of the retiring speakers that this suppressor works. They themselves personally put it on their ears and said, this actually works. So I do not understand this position that we should only allow it for law enforcement. Does everyone not have the right to protect themselves, to defend themselves without costing themselves one of their primary 5 senses? No. Self-defense and protection is a right for everyone, period. Full stop, no exceptions. I would love to give this tool to our law enforcement officers, but I would also love to give this tool to the family man who wants to protect his family, to the wife in a domestic violence situation who needs a way out and ways to protect herself in case of an angry ex pursuing her. For marginalized people in our community who feel they cannot walk outside without some measure of protection. They all deserve just as much protection as our law enforcement agencies when it comes to exercising their Second Amendment right to practice, to train, to defend themselves, their family, and their community. So if this override were to fail, I will try the override again, and again, and again, and again, and again, until this term is over. And if it doesn't get through this term, I will introduce it again, because I will not bar and gate the freedom and protection of our people, whether or not they work for the government or not. Sorry, that's not going to happen. Protection is for everyone. I will say, though, I am heartened a little bit to see that there is some unity between the legislative branch and the executive branch. There are forces in both of those branches that I never thought would agree with each other, but here we are. And so I ask my colleagues to be consistent in our values, to not gate protection behind a wall of government blue. Protection should be for everyone. I trust the people of Guam. I trust the gun community of Guam, the responsible culture of advocates who want to train, practice, and protect their community. The people of Guam deserve that much. They deserve for our legislature to be consistent in their values, for our legislature to go to bat for them, the individual. One of my guiding principles as a senator has been to value freedom as my North Star. Whether it be for choice or cannabis or firearm regulations, I have been true to that. And I ask my colleagues to be true to the principle of freedom and override the Magahaga's veto and get this legislation onto the books. With that, Mr. Chair, Mr. Speaker, I yield the rest of my time. Thank you. I would like to move the bill to the third reading for vote.
On the motion, there has been an objection. On the motion to move veto bill number 27-38 COR to motion to override, move it to the third for consideration. Are there any objections? There has been an objection recorded. All those in favor, you have recorded the objection? There has been a recorded objection. On the on the motion, all those in favor of moving to override veto bill number 27-38 COR into the third reading, please indicate by raising your hand if you, okay? 1, 2, 3, 4. Motion carries. Okay, motions, on motions, hang on. Senator Tidy, General Lady from Tumuning, you're recognized.
Sijus Masi, Mr. Speaker. And good morning again to my colleagues. Mr. Speaker, at this time, notwithstanding the objections of a Magahagan Guahan and vetoed Bill 88-38 COR, which is an act to repeal and reenact Chapter 25, Title 16 Guam Code Annotated, relative to assessing the taxation of vehicle transfers on bill of sale only and streamlining vehicle ownership transfers. And I'd like to place the bill into the third reading file for the purpose of override and would like to speak on it.
Okay. Would you like to speak on it? You can proceed, ma'am.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Colleagues, today we stand to address a matter both practical and pressing for our people. Bill 88-38, as passed by this body, offers a simple but critical solution to a problem that affects thousands of residents. The unfair, inflated taxes applied to vehicle title transfers based on Kelley Blue Book values that often do not reflect the reality of used or deteriorating vehicles in Guam. We know the stories. Families forced to abandon the title transfer process because the taxes assessed on their vehicle far exceed the price they're actually paid. That's not just unfair. It's government creating unnecessary barriers to compliance. It's government cheating the people. Bill 88 repeals that outdated system and replaces it with a fair, transparent model, taxing based on notarized bill of sale, the actual sale price. This reduces financial burdens, encourages proper title transfer, and directly tackles Guam's worsening problem of abandoned vehicles. The governor's veto suggests this bill will open the door to fraud. Yet this measure retains verification requirements, empowers DRT to audit as needed, and introduces random compliance checks. This is not a blank check for fraud. It's a lifeline for struggling residents. Colleagues, we cannot let policy driven by fear deny relief to our people. Let us restore common sense and fairness to vehicle ownership transfer. I humbly urge your support to override the governor's veto. Sijus Masi, Mr. Speaker, and colleagues.
On the motion to override the governor's veto of bill number 88-38 COR. Okay. On the motion, the gentleman from Momoto Tumaiti, you recognize, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. So I just want to put this position out there for the viewing public and for the members of this body to chew on. Essentially, what this vetoed bill wants to do is it wants to remove tying the sales tax, the sale value for tax purposes from Kelley Blue Book. So essentially, I can sell a $20,000 car for $1 and only pay the tax on the $1. And that is a system that I can see be potentially ripe for abuse. You know, a lot of this system is very on the honor system already. What is to stop a person from selling a $20,000 car, going over to Rev and Tax and saying, we both sold it for $1, and everybody loses there in the community? And so I am not going to object to this motion, but I am going to put this position out there for this body to seriously consider and think about. One of the big things that always keeps me up as a lawmaker is the unintended consequences of our good actions, our good intended actions. And so while I do believe the intentions of this bill are very, very good, we do have to ask ourselves, do we open up a potential can of worms for abuse? Because as anybody knows who spent any time on Guam, the secondary vehicle market is alive and well and prosperous. Anybody can drive around and see cars parked on the side of the road with signs that say for sale. That too is part of the Guam economy. And I've always been a big believer that everybody should pay their fair share of taxes, regardless of class or social status. And so, just ask ourselves, are we opening up the potential for abuse if we override this veto and we allow people to sell $20,000 cars for $1 and pay the tax on $1? With that, Mr. Chair, I yield the rest of my time. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Senator. On the motion, any other? On the motion, Senator Tidigree, you want to close on it?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. You know, I've been a business owner twice, actually. Ran companies, understand the importance of paying my taxes. When you pay your taxes, that goes to things like schools, hospitals, public safety, the roads to get to and from. And running a business, you need those in place. And as a business owner, if I were to sell something that cost $20,000, then I pay the tax on $20,000. But if I sell something for $1, then I pay the tax on $1 because I'm not making anything from that. Basically, that's the principle of business. Whatever you sell and make a profit, then you have to give back in taxes. It's as simple as that. What this bill does is if I decide to sell my vehicle for $1,000, then I should pay taxes on $1,000. If I sell it for any amount of money, that's how much I should pay taxes on. But we all know the vehicles here that we sell are not the same assessment as a Kelley Blue Book. We deal with a different climate situation, and when you go to Rev and Tax to transfer your vehicle and they tell you, okay, the Kelley Blue Book says $20,000, and you say, no, I've had 2 appraisals done, and my vehicle is only worth $10,000 based on these other places that I went to get an appraisal. And plus, I don't have aircon, I don't have a bumper in the back, it's dented on the side, and it's in bad condition. But that individual doesn't get up from their chair from Rev and Tax and go and check out the vehicle because they're not appraisers. They don't do that. They just take it from the book. And this has been going on for years, for decades, that we have been overtaxing our community. That's why you're seeing more vehicles out there. That's why you're seeing people don't even want to sell their car for parts and transfer it over to somewhere else. That's why you see it on the road, abandoned. Mr. Speaker, members of this body, what this debate ultimately comes down to is fairness. Are we going to keep taxing working families based on arbitrary inflated valuations? Or are we going to trust a notarized bill of sale as a valid, accountable record transaction value, just as countless other jurisdictions do? That's why we have notaries. This bill does not remove safeguards. It does not leave DRT powerless to prevent fraud. What it does is empowers our residents to complete title transfers affordably and responsibly, ensuring vehicles can properly register, tracked when necessary. At the end of the day, the government's job is not to squeeze every possible dollar out of its people. It's to serve them fairly. We should never value bureaucracy, revenue over basic fairness. Let's choose to trust and empower our people, not penalize them for trying to comply with the law. I ask you to stand on the side of fairness today and override the governor's veto, Bill 88. Let's pass this law for the benefit of the people. Sijus Masi, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you very much. On the motion, notwithstanding the objections of Imagahagan Guahan to place vetoed bill number 88-38 COR in the voting file. Hearing, seeing no objections. Motion carries. Senator Tadiwa, you still have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I guess the governor really likes me, so here's another one for your consideration. Mr. Speaker, at this time, notwithstanding the objections of Imagahagan Guahan on vetoed Bill 54-38, which is an act to amend 1117 and add 1124 of Chapter 1, Title 3, amended 3105, 3110 of Chapter 3, Title 3, and amend 14105, excuse me, and Chapter 14, Title 3. Guam Code annotated relative to updating Guam's election laws and improving voter registration, election procedures, and ballot handling. I motion to place Bill 54-38 into the voting file for the purpose of override and would like to speak on it. And I did say notwithstanding the objections.
On the motion, Senator, you can continue.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Speaker and colleagues, Bill 54-38 is about one thing: ensuring every eligible voter in Guam has clear, consistent, and fair access to our electoral system. This measure, developed in collaboration with the Guam Election Commission, updates outdated election laws, streamlines voter registration, improves ballot handling, and strengthens safeguards that protect every vote. The legislation does not favor a party or a political agenda. It favors the people. It favors accuracy, uniformity, and modern best practices. By defining terms like quotation name or candidate filings, clarifying registration locations and timelines, and ensuring provisional ballots are properly counted and treated with fairness. Bill 54-38 builds a system the people of Guam can trust. The governor's suggestion that we should avoid practices from other jurisdictions does not reflect what our Guam Election Commission is implementing. Their efforts focus on expanding access to voting for our community. The early voting process has consistently proven successful year after year, offering greater convenience for our voters. Additionally, the timeline repeatedly requested by the Commission, extending preparations by 5 days, has demonstrated itself to be a reasonable and effective approach. It directly addresses staffing shortage that are affecting not only businesses on Guam, but also financial constraints facing our government. The governor's veto disregards the bipartisan and unanimous support this bill received in its passage. Today, I ask you to set aside politics and remember why we're here: to serve the people of Guam and to protect their voice at the ballot box. Let's uphold that responsibility by voting to override. Sijus Masi, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you very much. On the motion, any other senators waiting to speak on the motion? Gentlelady from the gentleman, you're recognized.
Sijus Masi.
I stand in support of this override because the governor objected to the bill only on one provision. It seems that she is objecting because we are shortening, she thinks they are shortening the time that people can register to vote. And I think that was in the original bill before amended by committee, that the time to register, the commission wanted 15 days or longer, but that provision was actually removed from the bill. And the only thing that was shortened was the time to register outside of their office, in the other locations, in the mobile locations, in the mayor's offices, but their offices will remain available for registration up to 10 days, exactly the same as today, up to 10 days prior to an election. That's in a provision, section 3104, that was removed from the original bill in the committee, and I think rightly so. So, because I don't think we have limited the time period for registration, I think the author was very clear that that was not her intention, so she removed that from the bill. So now we have a bill that does not limit in any way the current time period for registration. In the next election, it's going to be exactly the same. 10 days prior to the election, you can still register to vote. So I support the override, Mr. Speaker. Thank you.
Thank you very much. On the motion, are there any other senators wishing to speak on the motion? No other senators? Senator Taidigui?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker and colleagues. At its core, the vote is about trust. Trust in our system, trust in each other, trust in the power of fair elections. Bill 54-38 is not revolutionary. It's responsible, it's practical, and it's needed. Guam's election should reflect not just traditional, but progress. The bill provides clarity where confusion exists, consistency where inconsistency lingers, and fairness where processes were outdated. Rejecting this bill means rejecting the clear and responsible updates requested by the very commission we are entrusted to run our election. I ask now, let's stand for fairness, let's stand for modern, transparent, and trustworthy election. Let's override the governor's veto and deliver what the people of Guam deserve. Si Diyos Masi, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you very much. On the motion, notwithstanding the objections of Imagahaga and Guahan to place veto bill number 54-38 COR in the voting file. Seeing no objections, motion carries. We're still in motions. The gentleman from Tumuning, sir, you are recognized.
Sidus Masi, Mr. Speaker, and thank you for recognizing me. At this time, Mr. Speaker, I move to place in the voting file from the Committee on Finance and Government Operations the nomination of Juan K. Cabo to serve as a member of the Civil Service Commission Board of Commissioners with the recommendation to report out only.
Understandably, will that be in legislative concurrence? Can we just finish with the motions first and then I can move to that?
Sure, I'll stand by. Previously, another senator had moved a nomination, so
not a problem.
I was thinking concurrence, but I stand by.
Okay. Any other motions? Gentlelady from Barragata, you recognized?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I make the motion to switch the placement of Bill 16-38, instead of Bill 1638, Bill 100-38. So Bill 16-38 has to do with unclassified employment, and Bill 100-38 has to deal with literacy, promoting literacy in early childhood development. So number 14, my motion is to place Bill 100 in the lineup as the 14th bill on the agenda. and then switch Bill 16 down to the 23rd item on the agenda.
So you want to move the bill?
Yeah, so switch the places. 100 is on the 14th slot, and 16 is pushed down to the 23rd slot.
Motion's not out of order.
Notwithstanding House rules, I make the
Understood.
motion.
On the motion to switch bill number 4, okay, the 14th bill to be on the agenda, which is bill number 16-38 COR, to move it to, in order to the 23rd bill, and move bill number 100-38 COR to the 14th slot. Okay. Let's take a 1-minute recess. Yeah, okay. Legislature's back in session. Okay. On the motion to move to the 14th spot, bill number 100-38 COR, and to move bill number 16-38 COR, both by the same author, to the 23rd spot. On the motion, no objections, so ordered. You still have the floor, ma'am.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I also would like to do another switch on my bill 17, which has to do with public audit recommendations, which is on the 15th. It's a 15th item on the agenda, and switch it with Bill 149, which is on the 29th item, which has to do with waiving veterans' license plate fees. Oh, no, never mind.
I'll allow to move your bills, but
Okay.
no, okay, not the bills of other.
Okay,
other
thank you.
senators.
Then maybe in that case, can I just put Bill 16 in that slot? My apologies. So Bill 16 would be, take the place. So Bill 16 would be on the 15th slot. And Bill 17 will be in the '23rd slot.
You already moved Bill 100 to the 14th slot.
Yeah, so now that it's in the 14th slot, we moved Bill 16 in the 23rd slot, so I'm pushing 16 back up to take the place of Bill 17.
So you want to move Bill 16 to the 15th slot
Yes. And 17 to the 23rd.
and 17 to the 23rd slot.
Yes.
On the motion? On the motion, no objections, so ordered. Thank you. Still in motions. Gentlelady from Georgia, you're recognized.
Mrs. Masi, earlier in motions, my Bill 12 was removed from the agenda because of the report not being submitted by DPW regarding the Manila Public Health Building. I'd like to, in the place of Bill 12, move Bill 149, currently on the agenda as number 29. It's relative to waiving veterans' license plate fees.
On the motion, in place of Bill, what was the bill number that
Bill
was?
12, item number 4 on the agenda.
Okay, so you want to move Bill 149?
Yes.
To move, okay, Bill 149 to the 4th spot, which is her priority spot. Any objections? Any objections? No objections, so ordered. Motions? We're still in motions. Senator Tidigo, you recognize?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, since we are doing these changes, I ask, because the whole purpose of trying to get these election bills through before an election year, I know we have still September, but trying to get these election laws not out of the way, but in a timely manner because of an election coming up next year. Then I asked to switch on number 27, Bill 124-38, and switch it with Bill 154-38, which is number 30. I know it's not that much further down, but this is regarding the citizen documentary proof for United States citizens for voting. And it's in a very important bill, Mr. Speaker, so the further up I can get it, the better for a possibility, if anything.
On the motion to move Bill number 154-38 COR from the 30th spot and replace it to the 27th spot with 124-38 COR, both by the same author. Any objections? Hearing and seeing no objections, motion carries. We're still in motions. Okay. Let's move to legislative concurrence. Senator Dueñas, you are now recognized again, sir.
Sidus Masi, Mr. Speaker. So once again, I move to place in the voting file from the Committee on Finance and Government Operations the nomination of Juan K. Cavo to serve as a member of the Civil Service Commission Board of Commissioners with the recommendation to report out only.
On the motion, are there any objections? Objection? There is an objection. There is an objection on the nomination of Mr. Juan K. Cabo to serve as a member of the Civil Service Commission Board of Commissioners. Okay. All those in favor of moving that nomination to the third reading file for voting, please indicate by raising your hand. Motion carries. Vice Speaker Rada, you recognize me, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move to place in the voting file from the Committee on Land, Environment, Housing, Agriculture, Parks, and Infrastructure the nomination of Leilani R. Flores to serve as a member of the Guam Land Use Commission with recommendation to report out only.
On the motion, are there any objections? On the motion to place in the voting file from the nomination of Leilani R. Flores to serve as a member of the Guam Land Use Commission, are there any objections? Hearing and seeing no objection, motion carries. Majority Leader Senator Lohan, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I move to place in the voting file from the Committee of Transportation, Tourism, Customs, Utilities, Federal and Foreign Affairs the nomination of Meenakshi V. Hemlani to serve as a member of the Guam Solid Waste Authority Board of Directors with a recommendation to report out only.
On the motion to place in the voting file the nomination of Meenakshi V. Hemlani to serve as a member of the Guam Solid Waste Authority Board of Directors, are there any objections? Hearing and seeing no objection, motion carries. Majority Leader Senator Lohan, you recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I move to put in the voting file, place in the voting file from the Committee of Transportation, Tourism, Customs, Utilities, Federal and Foreign Affairs, the nomination of Jeffrey D. Kosaka as a member of the Guam Regional Transit Authority Board of Directors with a recommendation to report out only.
On the nomination to place in the voting file the nomination of Jeffrey D. Kosaka to serve as a member of the Guam Regional Transit Authority Board of Directors, are there any objections? Hearing and seeing no objection, motion carries. Senator Lohan, you still recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I move to place in the voting file for the Committee of Transportation, Tourism, Customs, Utilities, and Federal and Foreign Affairs the nomination of Corazon R. Montalano to serve as a member of the Guam Solid Waste Authority Board of Directors with a recommendation to report out only.
On the nomination, placing in the voting file the nomination of Corazon R. Montalano to serve as a member of the Guam Solid Waste Authority Board of Directors, are there any objections? Hearing and seeing no objections, motion carries. Senator Duenas. Sir, you're recognized.
Sidus Masi, Mr. Speaker. This time I move to place in the voting file from the Committee on Finance and Government Operations the nomination of Rose Marie Azuzu Morales to serve as a member of the Civil Service Commission Board of Commissioners with the recommendation to report out only.
On the motion to place in the voting file the nomination of Rose Marie Azuzu Morales to serve as a member of the Civil Service Commission Board of Commissioners, are there any objections? Hearing and seeing no objection, motion carries. Vice Speaker Rada, you recognize, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move to place on the voting file from the Committee on Land, Environment, Housing, Agriculture, Parks, and Infrastructure the nomination of Ronald C. Pangilinan to serve as a member of the Guam Land Use Commission with the recommendation to do confirm.
On the motion to place in the voting file the nomination of Ronald C. Pangilinan to serve as a member of the Guam Land Use Commission, are there any objections? Hearing and seeing no objection, motion carries. Sir, Vice Speaker Rada, you can continue.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move to place in the voting file from the Committee on Land, Environment, Housing, Agriculture, Parks, and Infrastructure the nomination of Joseph A. Rios to serve as a member of the Guam Land Use Commission with the recommendation to do confirm.
Motion to place in the voting file the nomination of Joseph A. Rios to serve as a member of the Guam Land Use Commission. Are there any objections? Hearing and seeing no objection, motion carries. Senator Salas Matanani, you're recognized, ma'am.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move to place in the voting file from the Committee on Health and Veterans Affairs the nomination of Melanie R. Manjola to serve as a member of the Guam Memorial Hospital Board of Trustees with a recommendation to do confirm.
On the motion to place in the voting file the nomination of Melanie R. Mendiola to serve as a member of the Board of Trustees, Guam Memorial Hospital Authority. Are there any objections? Hearing and seeing no objection, motion carries. We are now in the second reading. Gentle lady from Maumutoto Maiti, or from Barragata. Ma'am, you're recognized.
Viva Barragata, Mr. Speaker. Half a day, everyone, and buenas. Mr. Speaker, I move to place into the third reading file Bill number 139-38, COR, as amended by the Committee on Child Welfare, Youth Affairs, Senior Citizens, Women Affairs, Disability Services, the Arts, Culture, Historic Preservation, and Hagatna Restoration. Bill number 129-38 COR was introduced by myself, Senator Shelley V. Calvo, entitled An Act to Add New Sections 13321.1 and 13321.2 to Article 3, Chapter 13, Title 19, Guam Code Annotated, relative to establishing the Foster Care Bill of Rights, and to cite this act as the Foster Care Bill of Rights Act of 2025. I wish to discuss the bill, Mr. Speaker.
Let's take a 1-minute recess first. Okay, Hannah. Vice. Legislation's back in session. Gentle lady, you can continue. You can.
Sedus Masi, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, colleagues, I rise today as the author of Bill number 139-38-38 COR, a measure that affirms something fundamental, that every child in foster care and every foster parent who steps up in service deserves to be protected by clear, enforceable rights. With this legislation, we finally provide that protection. Mr. Speaker, Bill number 139-38 COR creates a foundation of dignity, safety, and accountability. It enshrines a foster care or foster children's Bill of Rights and a foster parent's Bill of Rights into Guam law. It ensures that those navigating the foster care system are not left in the dark or left behind. We've heard compelling and unified testimony from across our island and even from national leaders. Managing Attorney Carol Hinkle Sanchez of the Civil Law Center and Elderly Justice Center reminds us that this bill reduces systematic barriers, especially for individuals facing homelessness, poverty, and discrimination. Mr. Speaker, the Attorney General of Guam, Douglas Moylan, expressed strong support, emphasizing that this bill aligns with the Office of the Attorney General's mission to safeguard the welfare of children and promote justice for families in crisis. We also heard from Director Michelle Perez of DCID, Director Therese Ariola of DPHSS, and national advocates from National Association for the Education of Homeless Children and Youth, or NAEHCY, and the National Foster Youth Institute, or NFYI, each one affirming the urgent need to protect those with disabilities, those facing housing instability, and especially our foster youth. Mr. Speaker, Bill 139-38 recognizes that the right of a child to participate in their case planning, giving them a voice in decisions that shape their future. It clarifies visitation policies, ensures privacy protections, and requires the rights of foster youth be clearly posted in residential facilities. For foster parents, it provides critical legal safeguards, notice of hearings, access of records, and protection against unjust accusations. Most importantly, the bill includes strong anti-discrimination provisions for both youth and caregivers. This bill affirms our commitment to equity for all. Mr. Speaker, this bill is thoughtful, it is compassionate, and thanks to the amendments in the committee, it is clear, consistent, and ready for implementation. Bill number 139-38 reflects this legislature's enduring commitment to safeguarding the rights and dignity of Guam's foster children and foster parents. This measure doesn't merely gesture towards accountability, it anchors it in the law. Mr. Speaker, codification is essential because this actually opens doors of opportunity for Guam. With this codification, after this is in place, Mr. Speaker, we will be able to go after additional opportunities for our island, additional grants, such as educational grants for our foster kids. So this is a truly meaningful legislation. And if there's any concern, Mr. Speaker, about lack of enforcement mechanisms, we must recognize that every foster child protected under this legislation is already within the jurisdiction of the court systems. Grievances tied to the exercise or violation of these rights will be adjudicated accordingly by family court, who are empowered by family court judges who are actually empowered to act in the best interests of the children. This structure provides an existing, credible avenue for resolution and oversight. Others have noted that the bill may not mirror current practices. However, that is not the case. Our office, my office, engaged in a robust, comprehensive markup session in collaboration with the leadership of the Bureau of Social Services Administration, or BOSA, precisely to ensure that this legislation codifies, not disrupts, the realities of foster care here on Guam. This bill was carefully crafted to codify the operational standards of Guam's foster care system as they exist today. Mr. Speaker, in doing so, it elevates unwritten protocols into clear, enforceable law, empowering both children and caregivers with clarity, protection, and accountability. I would like to express deep gratitude to my colleagues who have joined as co-sponsors of this measure. Senators Terlahi, Parkinson, Vice Speaker Ada, Borja, Salas Matanani, San Augustine, Barnes, and Perez. Your commitment to Guam's foster care system and the children and families it serves has brought vital momentum to this effort. Your collaboration has strengthened this legislation, ensuring it stands not only as a legal milestone, but also as a shared promise to our community. And I encourage all my colleagues to please support this legislation. Let us move forward with the knowledge that when we pass this bill, we are doing more than just reforming a system. We are restoring dignity, fairness, and voice to the people it serves. I humbly ask for my colleagues' full support of Bill number 139-38 COR. Siduous Masi.
Thank you, ma'am. On the bill, Bill 139-38 COR, are there any other senators? Gentleman from Mamoto Tumaiti, you recognize, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Hafaday to my colleagues and the people of Guam. Thank you for the opportunity to speak on Bill number 24-38, an act to add a new Chapter 98 to Title 10, Guam Code Annotated, relative to emergency contraception for survivors of rape. Oh, I apologize. Wrong notes.
You want to use your time? You want to take a recess? Let's do it this way. Is there any other senators willing to speak? The gentleman from Talafova, and then I'll go back to you. Okay? Thank you. Gentleman from Talafova, you recognize.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise in support of Bill 139-38. During the public hearing for this bill back on May 23rd, it was Attorney Carol Hinkle-Sanchez, a friend of ours in this branch, that made this particular point about this measure that hit right to the heart of the issue. She said, quote, "It will ensure that rights of foster children and foster parents are protected, and it will ensure that foster children are receiving the proper care, education, and support that they need while in the juvenile justice system and foster care system, and foster parents are getting the support service they need to provide a safe, nurturing environment for these children." Mr. Speaker, it is widely known that children are persons, and our law should recognize this. While our foster care policies may seem a bit complex, this measure will more than alter Guam law that will institute key changes for the 697 foster children and 96 licensed foster parents here. We recognize that we can do better to support these folks. We recognize that our Guam foster care system cannot fail these 697 foster children twice, assuming that there was some level of failure in the homes where they may have come from. This statement is one from a policymaker that spent some time watching our justice system lift up children and families. Mr. Speaker, my time at our sister branch of the Judiciary of Guam was, among other things, to be present, to be one of the first in our community to celebrate a turnaround that broke up a family in the first place. A privilege in a handful of the dockets, to include the family court, to see love and life brought back to the fold. I know many are not so lucky across our nation and across our island. And surely there may be some examples locally in the past that are not so great either. Bill 139-38 creates enforceable rights for foster children. What is wrong about foster kids being safe and having what they need? What is wrong about these same kids seeing and talking to people they care about? What is wrong with foster kids being healthy? There's nothing wrong with those. There will be some changes to the statute that will continue moving forward. I don't think that this is going to be the last time that we see this particular policy on this floor. It will change with the changing times. I commend Senator Shelley Calvo, who not only chairs this committee and listened to our foster care community. I commend her for her work on this policy, and I ask that I be added as a co-sponsor. Senator Calvo listened to public health, who, for the record, had offered many changes, and many were added to this bill in the markup process. The policy reflects a modern foster care Bill of Rights policy that will soon, God willing, 8 states that are working diligently to codify a foster care Bill of Rights today, and join 19 states that have created, under law, a foster care Bill of Rights. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for the time to speak on this bill today.
Thank you very much. We're going to go back to the gentleman from Momototomaiti. Sir, you have the floor back.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. I appreciate the latitude. I rise today as a proud co-sponsor of Bill number 139-38, the Foster Care Bill of Rights Act of 2025. It specifically codifies clear, enforceable rights for foster children and foster parents, ensuring that every child placed in foster care receives the essential care, protection, and respect they deserve. Among these rights are guarantees to safety, quality education, and respect that they deserve. The bill is crucial for our island because Guam's foster youth face uniquely significant challenges. National data indicates foster children experience far higher rates of trauma, instability, and mental health struggles. These issues are further magnified here at home, where our foster care resources are limited, underscoring the urgent need for clearly defined rights and protections. Every child in foster care deserves not only safety and stability, but also genuine hope for their future. Throughout this process, we have received substantial testimony in support of this bill. Rebecca Liu Viao, CEO of the National Foster Youth Institute, strongly stated, foster youth are not someone else's children. They are all our children. This bill is a commitment to take care of Guam's children. Similarly, Deirdre Lynch Nicholson from the National Association for the Education of Homeless Children and Youth highlighted in her testimony that clearly defined enforceable rights restore security, dignity, and stability to foster youth, who otherwise face compounded vulnerabilities including homelessness and poor educational outcomes. Furthermore, the Department of Public Health and Social Services has provided constructive feedback to strengthen this bill, emphasizing that clear guidelines and responsibility help foster parents and caregivers better support the children entrusted to their care. Bill number 139-38 represents extensive collaboration among foster youth, families, caregivers, social workers, and community advocates. It reflects our collective commitment to fundamentally improving Guam's foster care system and making it more accountable, dignified, and supportive. By adopting the Foster Care Bill of Rights Act of 2025, we amplify the voices and affirm the rights of foster youth on Guam. We clearly demonstrate our community's unwavering commitment that these young individuals matter deeply. They deserve dignity and respect, and we will never forget them or neglect them. I respectfully urge my colleagues to strongly support Bill number 139-38 COR. Let our vote today reflect our island's profound commitment to compassion, care, and the well-being of every child placed in foster care. To Zeus Maasi, and thank you. I yield the rest of my time, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you very much, Senator. On the motion, gentleman from Tumuning, you're recognized, sir.
Zeus Maasi, Mr. Chair, and I certainly rise in full support of Bill 139-38. You know, as you know, Mr. Speaker, I spent a good time in my government service at Department of Youth Affairs. And, you know, it's really interesting, and one of the characteristics, we get information, as many have mentioned on the floor now, from public defender and alternate public defender individuals, much like the mentioned Carol Henkel Sanchez, you know, in terms of what their workload is a lot of times. And what their workload is a lot of times is really dealing with children in need and the requirement and the need for placement. Department of Youth Affairs sometimes, during my time there, was not that much undifferent, Mr. Speaker. A lot of times with status offenders, and those are who have not committed a crime, but are beyond control, and other issues that deal with their ability to function in a household or function in the community, from time to time requires a designation of persons in need of service. Just like the good senator from Talafofo mentioned, a lot of the court procedures sometimes identify children that cannot live in a home for whatever reason as PINs, persons in need of services. And much like, because of our structure, Sanctuary Incorporated, Department of Youth Affairs, other organizations, you know, they have these guidelines and regulations that are set by the federal government in statute, because many of us receive federal funds to operate these agencies that deal with youth and children. So this is a very timely and very important piece of legislation to be able to set out these Bill of Rights. As you read through it, it really is basically a menu of the proper placement of an individual who unfortunately needs this placement, and clearly enumerates that, and it's a great tool as public health has refined this legislation, and something that we clearly need to have. And I commend the author for placing this bill and introducing it, hearing it, and finally getting it on the floor. And I know that many youth organizations and many folks who have been doing this God's work really for many, many years as foster parents, I'm sure will gladly, you know, accept these rules and regulations, or at least the Bill of Rights as enumerated. I'm sure many of them have been treating these children with such care to begin with. But having this codified in legislation, I think, is very, very important. And I ask the bill sponsor to please add me as a co-sponsor. Mr. Speaker.
Thank you very much, Senator. On the bill, any other senators wishing to speak on the bill? No other senators? Senator Cabo, you recognize? You want to? Ma'am, would you like to speak? Gentlelady from Janya, ma'am, you are recognized.
Sujas Masi, I stand in support of this bill and the efforts that we are going to be placing into law to codify things that, when you read the list, remind us of the issues that these foster children and foster parents continue to face. So I'm hoping it's a goal that by putting some of these protections in statute, that we will be able to attract more foster parents, because they do have challenges. Even despite their generosity and their hearts, there are legal, physical resource challenges. For example, on page 6, one of them that we are going to codify is the right to foster care maintenance payments, subject to the availability of funds. They actually have a right to these payments, but we receive calls all the time that these payments are delayed by Department of Administration. And so we hope that this will give them some additional protection in that regard, and that this is not just words, but it will actually allow them and public health to more promptly address payments for foster care families. Things like on page 5 for the foster parents, that they have a right to explanations. I mean, it sounds simple, but this is another thing where they feel like they're out of the loop of what's going to happen to this foster child in the long run, and that they will be included according to these Bill of Rights now. They will always be included in those discussions, and rightly so. They are, according to this, going to be placed as priority consideration for adoption if the child becomes free for adoption or another planned permanent living arrangement, and they have lived in that foster home for 12 months. They have a right, according to this on page 7, to attend court hearings. These, again, are the foster parents who we've been desperately trying to recruit, and the village mayors have helped us to recruit, and the CPS continues their work in trying to find and recruit foster parents because, again, I'm just going to repeat these numbers that have been stated already, because of the 697 children who are in foster care today, the only 96 licensed foster parents, 216 have been placed with relatives. And this is, again, CPS's #1 tool is the generosity of families here on Guam and their willingness to help each other. But again, foster parents are taking many times more than one child, and they are very pressed. So resources are critical. Information is critical. Timely responses, being able to contact somebody at public health and the BOSA and CPS, critical. And because many times we're dealing with children, we want to address their special needs. Again, this legislation does that and lays out what the child gets. And we would think, after reading the list, don't they get that? But no, not necessarily. They don't get that. And sometimes maybe it's because we're just swamped, right? There's too many. We can't oversee them well enough to make sure they are getting all those things. So this puts a kind of a burden on public health to make sure that their oversight of these foster homes is ensuring all of these things for kids, including their rights to know what is going on with them, what is the plan for them, when of course they're old enough to understand, and in terms that they can understand, a right to space in a home, personal space, a right that their stories or their issues are kept private, unless, of course, it's in a meeting regarding their case or something else, that their story and information is not something for everybody to spread around. This is how the children are going to be growing up. In many cases, they've been in foster care for their from grade school to high school. So these protections are really just going to help them to lead good lives, better lives, and be protected, and hopefully, despite the challenges that they've gone through, to be productive members of our community, to in turn help us to better take care of foster children. It's, it entails visitation, it talks about clothing, visitation, the right to communicate with parents, birth parents, That's a big thing for them, I'm sure. And a lot of this is regulated by the courts, if they're in the court system, of course. So I'm sure all of this will have to be brought before the courts. But this gives them the right to argue for those things and the right to push, to urge that that should be granted. That is a right of theirs. A right to the care that the child needs. This is probably the most important, and I fully support, because sometimes we might say it's not available, or sometimes we might say we can't afford it, or sometimes we might say, you know, we're giving you health insurance. If it's not covered, then, you know, it's not covered. But this says they have the right to receive emotional, mental health care or chemical dependency treatment. They have the right to personally tailored care. They have the right to report a violation of personal rights without fear of punishment, interference, coercion, or retaliation. And we're supposed to give each foster child a copy of these rights, and each foster parent a copy of these rights, so that everybody knows what rights they have, and that who they can call, and that CPS, and I admit that this bill is going to increase the burden on CPS in their oversight of these homes. But I think that's, we're just going to have to do that. That's just something that's necessary. I think we are still in need of CPS workers to be freed up from other work so that they can get back to all of the things that are required in these foster placements. Finding families, making sure they're good fits, overseeing what's happening in those homes. And so, again, I'm hoping that this bill is going to help everybody. Because of the extra burden on CPS, it's going to help CPS as well to focus, and public health to get the contract for the foster care home going, so that that is outsourced, and that they can, as supposed to be, they can get their CPS workers back to full-time CPS work because of the great need. So I support this bill. Sitos Masi, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you very much, Senator. On the bill. On the bill. Any others? Senator willing to speak on the bill? Gentlelady from, I get your recognition.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and thank you to Senator Caldwell for introducing this bill and allowing me to be a co-sponsor. I remember several months ago when I first got the request to be a co-sponsor, and I read through the bill. It was one of those things where it's like, of course, it's a no-brainer for me, because when I read through some of the items in the bill, one of them that stood out for foster children was the right to live in a safe, healthy, and comfortable placement where the child can receive reasonable protection from harm and appropriate privacy for personal needs, where the child is treated with respect. Another provision where the right to appropriate care and treatment in the least restrictive setting available that can meet the child's needs according to the best judgment of the parents, the caseworker, and the court. And so, yes, obviously this is something that I would support. For the Foster Parents' Bill of Rights, the right to be treated with dignity, respect, trust, value, and consideration as a primary provider of foster care and a member of the professional team caring for foster children. I could go on and say so many ways why I support it, and I urge my colleagues also to support this bill, because really it just sets the standard for compassion and accountability. So thank you, Senator Caldwell, for allowing me to be a co-sponsor of this bill, and I look forward to voting in favor. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Senator. On the bill, gentleman from Jordan, you recognize, sir.
Sidos Masi, Mr. Speaker, Manana Sidos to the people of Guam. Thank you for watching our session today. And thank you for the opportunity to speak on the bill, which I do support. I mean, you have to think what makes this Bill of Rights necessary is that all too often there are so many wrongs committed against our children whether they're in foster care or not. But I think, and I commend the author actually, because it's kind of a balancing act to codify these rights for the children, the foster kids, and the foster parents without infringing upon the rights of the parents or the kids. And I think the challenge will be ensuring that children in foster care are aware that they have these rights. So when they're not able to access them, they tell the appropriate parties. And I also think the biggest part of this conversation, why we're here today, if we look at the genesis of the crisis, really it is a crisis in foster care. It's a crisis with child protective services. And it's a crisis that really worsened with the crystal methamphetamine epidemic. You know, over the last few years, we've had so many stakeholders, so many people who do God's work come before this bodies before it, and talk about the ice, the keki, the crystal methamphetamine that is so addictive. You have parents, fathers, mothers who would rather chase down their next high than fulfill their obligations to be parents, responsible parents. And I think the first real indication that we were heading to this foster care crisis was the number of CPS complaints during the pandemic. I mean, there are times that CPS has had, over 1,000 complaints to address. And sadly, a lot of those complaints lead to foster care cases. And even more tragic is many of these children enter into foster care hoping that their mother, hoping that their father will get their priorities straight, will beat that addiction so that one day they can rejoin their biological families. And sadly, all too often, that never happens. And so the codification of these rights is something I completely support, and I would also ask the author to be included as a co-sponsor. And again, I commend the committee for the diligent work, because the Department of Public Health and Social Services, in the testimony that they provided, submitted 10 pages of recommendations to the committee, 10 pages of changes, some minor, some stylistic, some dealing with redundancies. And for the most part, almost all of those recommendations made by the stakeholders who work in this field were followed. But there were two that were not, and I'm reading here from the public health testimony they submitted. They asked that Section F of the Foster Children's Bill of Rights, which reads, which gives foster children the right to make and receive confidential telephone calls and send and receive unopened mail unless prohibited by court order. And public health in the testimony had asked that this entire section be struck from the bill. And the reasoning, the justification that they gave was that the court or CPS reviews and monitors communications based on the child's specific case. So they suggested that this section be removed in its entirety, but it was not. Also, they suggested Section G, which reads in the bill, foster children have the right to be disciplined in a manner that is appropriate to the child's level of maturity. Now, public health, again, recommended that this entire section be struck from the bill, and they included a question: what are you considering discipline? In their justification, their reasoning for suggesting this change, they proffer that this section is too vague. It's too vague, and it's open to varying interpretations of what is considered appropriate. And while, of course, we respect the rights and the authorities of the foster parents And although there may be existing backdrops in current statute that cover children in and out of the foster care system, I would tend to agree with Public Health's recommendation that it leaves discipline open to just varying interpretations. And, sadly, we've seen cases where foster parents commit atrocious acts against kids, and whether that's intentional or they, in their mind, think that they're disciplining a child. And we've seen it all too many times where you have parents, whether they're foster parents or not, trying to justify why they discipline babies, why they abuse babies, young children. And in their mind, they offer these excuses and they say it's justified, or they say they deserved it. And for me, that's a little troubling, and I would tend to agree with Public Health. And so I did want to ask the author, Mr. Speaker, if she would so yield. And again, I'm in support of the bill. I'm just curious the reasoning behind not following these two recommendations, because again, for the most part, almost every single recommendation was followed by the committee during the markup process. So the question I would like to ask the author is why the recommendations of Public Health were not followed in these two sections.
Will the gentlelady from Barragata yield to the question asked, posed by the gentleman from Zonia? You can proceed now.
I'm going to take this opportunity, thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'm going to take this opportunity to address multiple concerns that we heard, minor concerns on the floor. We have reviewed the procedural language.
For the purpose of, we just need to be able to address the specific question that was proffered by the gentleman, and then you can do your other concerns later. Okay?
May I ask Senate?
Can you repeat your question,
yes,
sir?
please.
So just want to say, Mr. Speaker, so the question was in Public Health's testimony, they recommended that sections F and G in the Foster Children's Bill of Rights portion of the bill be struck entirely, and the justification for striking section F was that the court or CPS reviews and monitors communications based on the child's specific case. And then for section G, which delineates the right for foster kids to be disciplined in a manner that is appropriate to the child's level of maturity, Public Health in their testimony asked, what do we consider discipline, and further said that this section was too vague and open to varying interpretations of what is considered appropriate, and therefore they recommend to remove the section. So the question was, why did the author choose to not follow these two recommendations from Public Health?
Do you understand?
Mr. Speaker, rights like privacy and communication respect the child's dignity, but they are framed within the context of safety and reasonable limits. Dispute mediation or mediation processes remain available to navigate these areas. The information sharing is framed by safety. Rights to privacy don't prevent caregivers from accessing necessary background information. Confidentiality will be balanced with duty of care. With regards to the concern, I am all for tightening the bill. And for, obviously, I created this, we created this legislation supported by majority of our colleagues because it is something that is needed. Basically, we will support anything that will add to amend the bill, or we will support amending the bill to require annual review. We will support anything that will tighten the bill. So moving forward, we're open. Like any other bill, nothing is perfect. So I'm open to working with all my colleagues to tighten this bill. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Does that answer your question, Senator?
Mr. Speaker. I didn't hear a justification there, but what I did hear from the author was a willingness to possibly amend these sections. And I only want to, because as the section F reads, it says foster children shall have the right to make and receive confidential telephone calls and send or receive unopened mail unless prohibited by court order. So I don't necessarily agree that the foster parents would still have the authority to, take mail that's addressed to a foster child, open it up and read it, simply because the section reads so very plainly. And my concern is, as a retiring speaker had said, foster children, unfortunately, are all too often the targets of pedophiles and predators. And I think that we have to ensure that foster parents have the ability to monitor. I mean, I got kids. I don't want my kids receiving confidential mail, confidential telephone calls, secret Roblox messages from these perverts, pedophiles, and predatory individuals who we know we have a problem. And that was just my issue with that specific section. And so if the author would be open to maybe amending it in her closing, and I know that the standing rules require that we proffer the amendments before we discuss the bill, but Mr. Speaker, I would just offer that this would be, if the author would move it, would just be a simple strike through, and I'm sure the body would indulge us in saving a tree, should that be the desire of the author. And so again, I rise in support of the bill. No bill is perfect, but with the markup process and the committee following just about every other single suggestion from public health, these two stuck out in my mind because they're not merely suggestions to correct a typo, a misspelling, or the wrong reference to agency or authority. To me, they present potentially real risks and threats to the very foster children that we are all trying to protect, not just with the passage of this bill, but in everything we do as a body. So again, Sidus Masi, Mr. Speaker, for the opportunity to rise and speak in support of the bill. And I want to also commend all of the individuals out there, the foster parents who step up, and they always need more foster parents. And I also want to commend, maybe on paper, in black and white, they're not necessarily foster parents, but we're very blessed to have, in a lot of cases, extended families, grandpas, grandmas, ninos, ninas that step up and take care of kids who are going through familial issues. So again, I would just reiterate my concern with those two sections in the bill and further ask the author to amend the bill by striking it in her closing. Sidus Masi, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you very much. Colleagues, we have a schedule to be able to keep. We have road dedication that some of us would like to be able to attend. So why don't we go ahead and take a recess now, and we return back at 1 p.m. Okay, we return back at 1 p.m. And the gentlelady from Barragata, you'll have the floor when we come back in. Okay? So recess until 1 p.m.